we will go further into this, looking at from a different perspective at inclusion and how it can be. So also this, if we look at this from the perspective of inclusion, this was so that we acknowledge that every single person with a bleeding disorder, or from their family or their caregivers, they are the ones who are these rights holders. So we need, at each of us in our community, we need to look from this perspective. So then to come to this rights perspective, as I was saying, we will look at the needs first. So I will introduce you to an approach. I will share my mural with a little bit of introduction, and then you will have each your own murals. So this approach is called nonviolent communication, or NVC in short. And this is again a bit on this touchy-feely side of things, but it's very, very crucial to actually to understand or to have this analysis done. Also, what we can use for the human rights-based approach is deeper analysis of the causes of the shortcomings, let's say. So this nonviolent communication, it was developed. It's a process that was developed by somebody called Marshall Rosenberg, and he was born in he's sadly deceased. So he was born in year 1934 and deceased in 2015. But so he was growing up in Detroit, and as some of you may, or all of you, as you may know, that Detroit is one of the cities in the United States that's actually quite controversial, because it was very, I think the fifth largest city in the 50s, where there was it was booming with the automobile enterprises and all. So it was very rich and big city. And then in the 70s, there was a fuel crisis that influenced all this automobile production. And so a lot of the cities, actually a lot of the regions are abandoned in the city. So you can see, I put there a picture of an empty, beautiful, you can see the past beauty of this house. So Dr. Rosenberg, he grew up in Detroit, and there's also a lot of violence in the city, and a lot of different communities, and a big Black community. And Dr. King, he was the one who gave his famous speech, "I Have a Dream," was given in Detroit as well. And so Rosenberg, when he was growing up, he saw all this violence, and he wanted to find a more peaceful way how to deal with these problems that are, because there are obviously in a place like this, there are a lot of socially a lot of problems. So then he went to study psychology under Carl Rogers, which is another famous American psychologist. So, and then he developed this approach called nonviolent communication. And first he used it for schools that were federally funded to provide mediation and communication, so that they can have better school system in place. And and then after it, when it seemed to be a success, then he also used it as to initiate peace programs, like in countries like Rwanda and Nigeria and Middle East and even Northern Ireland, apparently. So it's a process designed to get people talking and to work together by acknowledging that there are that there are feelings, and that those feelings come from either met or unmet needs that are beneath them. So then in the end, there is, just because we are all human, as you can see in the quote that he has there. And yeah, so that's about this, what we will do. And we will try to do with you in practice. We will try to take this approach and use it and talk about these feelings and needs that you as members of bleeding disorder community have. So, and I will also, Fiona has there a question, I will address it in a second. Before we start working there, I wanted to also tell you a story, because I know that there's always this kind of, and we are a community, and we've been talking to each other a lot, and in hotel lobbies and in bars, and now a lot on Zoom. Nevertheless, this sharing can feel always intimidating, and it's a bit strange. But then one story that I always remember, like in my old work, I used to do youth work, and we did have, like a million years ago, we did training about poverty. And we had a speaker from Scotland, and Scotland, as you know, is also very poverty stricken, and he's working with poor people and with homeless people there. And he was then, to start his presentation, he was telling us a story. And this story, I don't remember what the presentation was about, but the story was very beautiful. So he was saying, like, when he was a little, his mom had kind of a cupboard where you keep dishes and cups and all. And his mom never allowed, there was one very, very beautiful porcelain cup, and his mom never allowed him to take it in his hand. And then he was asking why. And then the mom was saying, because this cup is very fragile and precious, and you will break it. And then he said, but you know, actually, when we know that something is fragile and precious, we will hold it with more care, and we will be more careful about it. So for this also, and just to say that we don't need to be afraid to share our fragilities, because then it might be held tighter. So by accident, we did stop the recording before we managed to explain about the process of the nonviolent communication. So I'm doing just a small additional recording to explain it to you, so that you have the complete presentation. So there are 4 components in the process of the non-violent communication. So, and we will here in this in our exercise, we did work with the 3 of these 4 components. So the first component is the observation, and this observation is very important, so that we can observe the situation around us without any judgment, without any reactions, without any feelings. Just sit back and observe, and note down what is happening, what's going on around you. And so this way, this was based on how Dr. Rosenberg himself, he was observing what's happening around him in Detroit. So, and then what came out of it. And so observation is very a key point in this process. And also, for instance, in your context, in our context as a bleeding disorder community, we can also observe what's going on around us in terms of treatment for people with bleeding disorders, what's going on around us in terms of multidisciplinary care, in terms of the mental health, in terms of quality of life, all kind of things that we could observe, both from the neutral perspective, from the outside perspective, but as well as part of being the bleeding disorder, as part of the bleeding disorder community ourselves. So that's the observation part. The second component of the non-violent communication is the feeling. So there comes the feely part here. So of course, as we notice things that are happening around us, there's always inevitably there is some kind of feeling that is created, and those feelings can be both positive and negative, and then subsequently from that emerges our further conclusion what it means. But so when we do this observation for things that are around us, then we can also note down what kind of feeling, what kind of sensation this observation creates in that particular moment. And here it is also very important to distinguish feelings from thoughts, because there's always, thought is more when you already get into the process, you are trying to look for the solutions. But in fact, in order to be able to determine the needs, to determine the unmet need, it's first very important to understand what kind of feeling it's creating, and then only after that take the further steps about doing something about it, because sometimes things are not what they seem they are, and it's always therefore important to start with this feeling part. And if you're talking to these, if you're talking, for example, with somebody else, also to determine what is this feeling in the discussion. And then finally, the third part of the process is needs. And so, as we know, starting from the world famous Maslow pyramid, We all as human beings, we do have needs, and also we do have values that sustain our lives and that enrich our lives. And so here the link with the feelings. So when those needs are met, we do experience positive feelings such as happiness, peacefulness, you name it. And then when those needs are not met, we experience uncomfortable feelings like frustration, sadness, anger. So also, for example, one of the quotes from Dr. Rosenberg is that you always take anger as an alarm bell for an unmet need, because indeed that's what it is. And so understanding those needs, what lie behind those feelings that we experience, this is the most important step in this whole process. So then we can identify actually where may be the problems, where may be the shortcomings, and understand what is going on with the other as well. And there's a fourth step as well in this nonviolent communication, which is request. So that's the further step that we will not look at this point, but this is one step further where you are already making a request. You are formulating what could be the way for this need to be met. And yeah, again, it's important that this need is acknowledged. A remark here also, I think what is very important, that's both when we do observation, when we do acknowledging of the feelings, when we do acknowledging of the needs, it's very, very important to be actually to embrace this with honesty towards yourself, and honesty and trust towards the other. For instance, if you're in dialogue with the people in your community about what are their feelings and their needs, of course it's very complicated and it's very difficult to open up and to share your vulnerability. But as I was saying, it might be even better, even bring some more benefit if we are not afraid to share our fragility, our vulnerability. So their honesty is the key, and also the separation between feeling and thought, separation also between your own feeling and assuming what would be the feeling of the other or the need of the other. So it's very, very important part of this. So with this, the presentation about the nonviolent communication is complete. And I would like to invite you all, those of you who did take part in the session, and also those of you who did not have possibility to join, to revisit again the mural and have a look again at the exercise, and try to do once again the observation part, to observe the bleeding disorder community on the global level, on the European level, on your national level, and think and note down for yourselves, or note down on the mural, what kind of feeling does it create for you, and try to think for yourselves also what kind of need, met or unmet for that matter, does this feeling reflect for you personally? Because you all are members of the bleeding disorder community, so you are all somewhat affected by the situation that you observe as well. So I would like to invite you to go back to the mural, and I've created there a space for notes where you can also note down about your feelings and about the needs that link to those, as we don't have any more the possibility to discuss them verbally all together. And don't hesitate, because this mural is only available to us. The link is only within this group of the Leadership Academy and the people who have registered for it, so nobody else will see it. So feel free to revisit and to have a look and have another thought about it. And so this will help us also to move on in the next session of the Academy. So thank you all very much, and until the next time.